lead up to talking about the thing itself and oneness. I have to tell you that it all started with Manny's beautiful meditation at 9:45, and thank you. That was just absolutely incredible to experience that. And then on to our reading and our what Manny was saying today, because it's important. But the one thing, my intention this morning, and I know when I look out, and those that I know and those that I've talked to and become acquainted with, there's a lot of science of mind knowledge here. But what we want to do is get back to the basics right now in January. Now, we do that because it's tradition in religious science and has been for many, many years. I've been a minister for 25 years, but I've been in this teaching 40. I figured it out yesterday when I was putting this together. I went, what? And I thought I was old when I got this teaching. I thought, boy, I wish I had it when I was younger, but I was 30. So now I don't think that anymore. I think, oh, how wonderful my life has been, because it's been one of a study and expansion and trust and faith and increasing my belief and deepening my consciousness. So it's the tradition of the movement to celebrate the life of Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of our movement of religious science, of Centers for Spiritual Living that we call ourselves now. And he's the author of our textbook. Whoops. Right here. Science of Mind. I didn't bring mine because mine's 40 years old. Can you imagine the difference in the print and things in 40 years? It was just a book about half this big, and it's all marked up and sticky notes and all kinds of things. But I wanted to make sure to show you this if you don't have it, because this is our textbook. And we use this in almost every class that we teach. And what we're going to be doing this January is the first 4 chapters. So we're going to talk about the first chapter, the thing itself, oneness. Then next week, the way it works. I think that's Reverend Peggy in your bulletin. And then the third chapter is what it does. And then, Reverend Rosedale is going to be speaking that day. And then Reverend Peggy will wrap it up with, Reverend Cindy wraps it up with how to use it. So I really hope that you stick with us this month. And then read the chapters before you come to service, and I'll tell you, it'll mean a lot more. But I asked myself, well, why do we do this? And there's 2 reasons that I think. And the first is Ernest Holmes' birthday is January 21st. How many knew that? Oh, good. Few. So when we celebrate our birthdays, when we bring the cake this month, let's make sure to include him. I thought that would really be nice. All right, and the second is to emphasize how important it always is to get back to basics. Now, if you're a sports figure, right, in anything, and you get off your game, what do? You go back to basics. Even I would imagine in music, if you get off your game and you feel like this just isn't working, you go back to basics. So that's what we need to do, because as we're on our spiritual journeys and we're studying all these laws and we're engaging in all these spiritual practices, sometimes we get off our game. And so we need to go back to basics. Because I don't know about you, but I was dedicated. I wanted to become a spiritual master. What about you? A spiritual master. I like our class. One of my favorite is self-mastery, thank you. Self-mastery, because that's what it's all about. Because it's how we see things. You know, we can have a picture on the wall, and one person say, what a beautiful picture. And another person might say, oh, I think it's ugly, right? So it's in the eye of the beholder, our spiritual essence, how we study, how we learn, how we bring it in. I know for myself that I want to be a beneficial presence wherever I am, whatever the circumstance is, and whoever I am with. So, the primary spiritual principle, and I need to put this down here. The primary spiritual principle that we're going to be, on which science of mind is based completely, all right, is oneness. And simply stated, there is in the universe one reality, principle, and presence, one supreme being, one infinite source of all things. And a commonly used shorthand, I love that, a shorthand term for this infinite source is God, right? Or spirit, and God is all there is. You know, Holmes always said, there's no spot where God is not. And I loved that. I never forget that. No spot where God is not. And there's only one life, one mind, one energy in which we live and move and have our being. Now, one is fun. Isn't that fun? It's fun. It's exciting to know that we are connected to everything. All of humanity, all of nature, all of animals, all of the mechanical things. I was thinking about the technology. We are all connected because it's all energy, isn't it? So it's exciting. What I want you to do is get excited about oneness and that we're one with each other. So what you think affects what I think, because we're one in the universal mind of God. What I think affects what you think, because we're all part of the one mind. So if you think peace, that helps me. If I think peace, that helps you. And our behavior has an effect on world behavior also. Now, I kind of want to expand our vocabulary in all this, but I also want to recognize that there's many different terms are used in various cultures and theologies to express this concept of God. All have the same meaning and all denote the single principle. Some used in science of mind are spirit, life, love, first cause, love intelligence, universal mind, the changeless, the universe, the absolute, infinite knowingness, a supreme being, said that before, divine intelligence. Now you pick one. I think it's important that you pick a favorite. Mine is divinity. I'm a divine being. Or love intelligence. I love that one too. So pick something that resonates with you. But it begins with our thinking. You know, we do meditation, we do spiritual mind treatment. We have all of these tools that we learn. But the sort of tagline, I guess I'll call it, for religious science is change your thinking, change your life. So it does begin with our thoughts. It begins with our conscious mind. And our commitment to say, I'm going to embody oneness. Right? I'm going to embody oneness. I want to feel that God. And then we can move it. I call it from our brains to our heart. You know? It's easy to study something and learn it, and then we need to move it down to our heart. So these many terms in keeping with honoring, oh my goodness. Okay, that's what I left out. Honoring all paths to God. I like Plato's. You know what Plato calls God? Unmoved mover. I like that. Emerson calls it the oversoul. Now, Native Americans worship the Great Spirit. Lao Tzu calls it Tao. Fundamental Christians say God. You know, Einstein referred to it his unified field theory. You see, it doesn't matter what we call it. Each human being is a creation of God. We're made in the likeness and image of God. Isn't that what Jesus said? And we're individualized expressions of spirit. So we're all one with God and we're one with each other. There's a divine wholeness and unity of life at the source. Source, for me, is very important. I know that this one universal energy is my source of all my need. So the point is, it's not out there, but it's within you right now. Now, I want to back up a minute because my pages were a little bit out of sync. But I want to briefly answer the question, who's Ernest Holmes? Because we're focusing on Ernest Holmes this month. And he was an internationally recognized authority on religious psychology. And Ernest, he didn't invent the concept of oneness. He called his work a correlation. The new consciousness in our world doesn't come from any one person or one theory. It's a synthesis of the ancient wisdom and modern discovery, from the medieval labyrinths to quantum physics. So Ernest was a masterful synthesizer, and I love remembering that about him, is a synthesizer from the ancient to the end of his life. His dream was simply that we are all well and happy. That's the whole intention of science of mind and studying our spiritual principles. And then we can extend it to other people in the world and affect that consciousness of the world. So now, what is science of mind and spirit? So I'm going to paraphrase Ernest Holmes' answer to this question, because it's important that we know what science of mind represents. And it's a correlation of religious science and philosophy. Now, how many knew that? Okay, and I love that. You see, when I was 30 and introduced to this and raised in with a father, my father was a Presbyterian minister. So you can imagine what I was raised with. You go to church on Sunday and you pray and you know, and I'm so thankful that I was raised in a spiritual home. But one thing that got me was I was saying, "Dear God," all the time in my prayers. And it took me a long time to move that concept of something out there to knowing that I live and move and have my being in the energy of spirit, of God. So we're a religion in the sense that we explore and teach universal principles defining the spiritual nature of the universe and our relationship with God. So I have time. I'm telling this story. It's not in my notes, but it was when I first went to ministerial school, I was listening to practitioners and ministers in training, and they were having all kinds of trouble with their families for this teaching. Now remember, this was, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and I had given my father a gift subscription to the Science of Mind magazine for a year, so he knew what I was studying, and then we were on the telephone. And I was sharing with him some of the family issues that it was causing in our students. And he said, "You know what? It doesn't matter what prophet that you believe in. It doesn't matter whether it's Jesus or Buddha or my mind went blank. But it doesn't matter that. The most important thing in your life is your relationship with God. And after that, we could talk about anything. And it sort of released me to understand that I have a philosophy that makes sense to my mind, to my what I felt like was my intelligence level. And I know also that all during these years when I was taking a class once a week, my life went better because I was kept focused on my spirituality. So we're a science in that we are asked to experiment with these universal principles that we teach and accept only those which you can prove, demonstrate, or experience in your daily life. And that takes some practice, doesn't it? It takes some practice. And then we're a philosophy in that ideas and ideals are brought together in a system of concepts about God and the cosmos and humanity and our human potentiality. And that's wonderful. I loved that this is a philosophy, a faith, a way of life, not just coming to church on Sunday. So, fundamentally, Science of Mind is a teaching based on principle. So you got to ask yourself then, what is principle? Anybody want to take a stab at it? It's okay. A base value, a base thought. How about a basic truth or a law that's infallible and it's been proven and it works without known exceptions and impersonal, and it works for everybody alike. So physical principles or laws like what? Electricity, mathematics, gravity, chemistry, planting a seed in the soil, it's going to grow. We have no doubt. There's no question that those are all laws, and those are physical laws. But we have spiritual laws that are the same. And sometimes we get those confused in our universal laws because there's so much in the universe. You know, I could start naming off all the laws and all the spiritual practices that we teach, and you'd probably go, oh. But it does take a while for us to develop. And the more we develop, the happier that we are. That's why I think it's fun to be one, because we all get to learn from one another. So, so as we live and move and have our being in our universe, governed by love and powered by law, and in the other messages you're going to get to understand these two aspects of the one mind, and they are two aspects of the one mind, and they each have their own characteristics. In it, we learn to have a spiritual sense of things in the oneness. And this is what we mean by Christ consciousness, to be able to discern the spiritual idea back of all physical symbols, is to use that mind, that one mind, which Jesus used. So it's intensely practical. Science of Mind is really practical. And it teaches us how to use that mind principle for definite purposes, you see? Because we can help those that are sick, or those that are impoverished, or even those that are just unhappy. So what better reason to study the science of mind and to learn about oneness and feel the oneness around you and know that is the source of all things. So from the very first time I encountered the ideas of Ernest Holmes, they felt like the exact words that was the music inside of me. So I stuck with this teaching, working to perfect techniques, deepening my own consciousness, developing my faith and my trust. Now, I also know there's many paths to spiritual awareness, and I think that we need to honor all of the paths. I was thinking about the authors of self-help people along the way. One of my favorite, and who's not a science mind person, was Zig Ziglar. Anybody know Zig Ziglar? Uh-huh. Yep. And he very much has a belief in the oneness and the power of God. You might recognize some of these. Mark Victor Hansen, Joseph Campbell, Deepak Chopra, Della Reese, John Redfield, Louise Hay. I love how Louise Hay was a religious science minister first, well, practitioner and then minister. And really what she did in Heal Your Body is that she took in the back of the textbook all of the meditations that you have in the back of the textbook that are for particular things, maybe a kidney problem or this problem, and gave you spiritual things to think about and emotional things that may be off and affirmations to help you heal. And she did a fabulous job of bringing that to the public attention. Wayne Dyer. We had Wayne Dyer. We sponsored him up in Anchorage when I was there, Alaska, and flew him up and had a huge event at a performing arts center. What a wonderful man, generous in what his life was. Stephen Covey, Terry Cole Whitaker, Marianne Williamson, Jean Houston, Michael Beckwith. And you can take any one of these people and follow their ideas, each having their own concept of God that they taught, and it will change your life. But here's what I've watched over this 40 years. I've watched people that read and jump from philosophy to philosophy, from self-help book or a guru to another one or the latest taught workshop to the next, and never move an inch from what they perceive their unhappiness to be. It really takes some time. And if you take time for a philosophy study, practice, demonstrate results, manifest in your own life, then you have faith and, most importantly, belief to stand upon, and your life is never the same. You know, when my other career was in higher education in universities, and I'm president and director of several colleges and universities. So I employed a lot of people, a lot of faculty. And people, when they found out I was a minister, they would come and talk to me about my philosophy of life, because we always had a positive atmosphere. Anybody that didn't want to live in a positive atmosphere, whether you were faculty or staff or admissions or what part you played, you didn't work there very long, or you chose to leave if you wanted to be negative all the time. And so it was my opportunity to talk to them about finding a truth, a spiritual message, a philosophy, and learn it, believe in it, and stand on it. So I encourage you to take the next classes coming up. You know, we've got them starting this month. Essential Earnest Homes starts Tuesday, January 15th, and I think they're on a flyer that you have on your program. And then Meditation and Treatment with Reverend Cindy starts on Thursday, January 31st. And they're open to everyone, even if you're new to Science of Mind. They're open to everyone. And through that 10 weeks, because they're 10 weeks, you'll have the opportunity to feel this oneness and hone your skills in prayer, which Manny talked about, and other spiritual principles, and make it work in your life and change your life. So let's have a little prayer and feel this oneness right now. Or as they said in the music, you know, we close our eyes and we feel Spirit, and we feel majesty, and we feel righteousness, which is right thinking. For we know and recognize that there is one mind, one one power, one presence, one reality, one source, and all of the qualities of love and joy and peace and creativity and beauty are within this one mind. And as we know that and recognize it as the source of all things, an abundant source, never lacking, always abundance, overflowing with abundance, are the qualities within us, for we are individualized expressions of the divine. And so with this unity that we have with spirit, with our supreme beingness, then we affirm and know that what we affirm comes to pass. And so I affirm right now that each and every person listening to my voice feels the oneness with divine intelligence, spirit, God, feels that connection, and then is excited because we know we are one with one another and that we think in the same mind of God. And so we have an effect on people. And I affirm that each person here, each person listening to my voice, is a beneficial presence wherever you are, whatever your circumstance, whoever that you're with. And so I am thankful for this realization of knowing that we are all together in this oneness. And I am grateful and I'm appreciative for my teachers, my mentors, my learning and my growing and my knowing that what I say is the truth. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that as I declare my word, it is done in the mind of God. And using that law of mind, that creative medium, that aspect, it becomes reality and turns into form. Now, how wonderful is that? And so with this gratitude, I can release and I can let go in complete faith, trust, belief, and confidence that it is so. And so say with me right now, and so it is.